Assalamualaikum. So today we are going to discuss on using the work of others and internal auditing. So for this topic, we are going to learn AI600 series, where they talk about all the auditing standard in which the auditors will use the work of others as well as internal auditing. Okay, there will be three auditing standards that we are going to address. The first one is AI600, using the work of others auditors. AI610, considering the work of internal auditors, which we will use a lot when we perform external audit. And AI620, using the work of an expert. The learning objectives. The first one is to appreciate the contribution by the experts in completing the audit work. And secondly, considering the importance to include other other experts' work in our audit work. Okay, the first AI would be AI610, considering the work of internal auditing. We need to understand what is internal audit all about. I'm sure you are familiarized by now, since you have learned AUD689. But just a recap, this standard has been effective since 1998 as a guideline for external auditor, EA. In considering the work of internal audit, what is an internal auditing? Basically, it is defined as appraisal activity in paragraph 3. Being established within entity as a service to the entity. The function of internal audit basically to examine, evaluate and monitor the adequacy and effectiveness of the internal control and accounting and internal control system of the company. So basically, an internal audit function is to add value and improve the organization's operations by improving the effectiveness of risk management, control and governance process. So this is from previous textbook. So the scope and objective of the internal audit is to review the accounting and internal control system, examine the financial and operating information, review the economic efficiency and effectiveness, review the compliance with laws, regulations, and other external requirements, and with management policies and directives and other internal requirements. So by now, I think you are well versed already what would be the scope and objective of internal audit. So you can see there's a huge difference, isn't it, from the external auditor, because external auditors work would be to verify the transactions that has been claimed by the company, while the internal audit more towards the operational side of the organization. Now look at the similarities between external auditor and internal auditor. Firstly, to establish an effective internal control system, they have to check the company's ICS, and we also have to verify the same thing. Secondly, ensure reliability of information used by the management, safeguard the company's assets, as well as set up proper accounts and other records. So interaction is needed between internal auditors and external auditor. As for us, as external auditor, we conduct our work for the purpose of expressing an opinion as to whether the financial statement are free from material misstatement. That's why we, again, if you go back to the what we have learned in issuing audit report, we on test basis we can give opinion about the company. As for the internal auditors, they assist the management and board of directors in evaluating and managing the risk. So they need to assess whether the company comply with certain laws and regulations, operational efficiency, as well as they perform detailed financial audits of areas requiring particular attention. So basically, if we talk about external auditor focus only on one aspect, which is financial statement audit, but internal auditor is covering on the organizational side, looking at compliance, operational audit. So we could say that their work is wider. but we can make use of the findings that they have from their work. Like we assess their work, and that can give ground to how are we going to approach our audit. As someone who is involved in internal audit and external audit, I can see a huge difference where when we look at the internal audit, they will work based on the whatever manual or SOP within the organization. But as external auditor, we work such that we want to make sure that the financial statement has complied to certain standard, which is being widely used throughout the organizations. Regardless of what organization you're in, you use only like one reporting standard. This is a difference from compliance audit, where it addresses certain issue based on the guideline issued by the organization respectively. Okay, moving on, we will look at the differences between the internal audit and external auditor. In terms of scope, internal audit is being decided by the management. External auditor is led by the statutory. The statutory make it compulsory for companies to be audited. So that's one of the reason we exist basically. So the approach, we will go to, like as what have been shown in slide 3, to achieve specific aim just now. As for external auditor, to report the truth and fairness of the financial statement. Responsibility, they go back to the management, basically to the audit committee in report. But external auditor is to the shareholders and the public. Now, I will not go through all the paragraphs in AI610, but you can see that there are many aspects that we need to understand when we want to use the word of internal audit. Earlier, we need to understand the relationship. We have discussed that just now. And then we have to understand and make any preliminary assessment of the internal audit work. When it comes to timing of liaison and coordination, is being considered in paragraph 14 and 15. And lastly, we need to evaluate and test the work of internal audit discussed in paragraph 16 to 19. Before we can actually rely on the work of internal audit, this is discussed under paragraph 13 of AI610. We need to look at the organizational status. Are they reporting to the highest level of management? That means depending on the organization, but if company, of course, they need to report to the audit committee. They need to be free from any other operating responsibilities. They are solely performing their duty as internal auditors. Now, talking about this, it is interesting that when we go to, this is just for me to share certain information as part of my studies. I am investigating on the competency of Sharia auditor in Islamic financial institution. So Sharia auditor in IFI or Islamic financial institution are actually their internal auditor, but different from the normal internal audit in financial institution. They need to have more knowledge on Sharia before they can actually perform their duty. So we can say that there are 3 levels of internal audit here. Internal audit in a normal company. So internal auditors in financial institution need to have vast knowledge on financial institution itself, how they operate. But if you are Sharia auditor, which is like internal auditor in Islamic financial institution, you have to add on another knowledge which is on Sharia. So you can see that there are many aspects that we need to look at. It's not as easy as it is to become an internal auditor. Scope of function, we want to know whether the management acts on the internal audit recommendation. Like for UiTM Melaka, we also have internal audit. So from time to time, we will conduct internal audit. So the feedback that we have out of the audit, the findings will be table to the management so that actions can be taken to rectify certain situation. Technical competence is another factor that we need to look at, whether the internal audit personnel have adequate training and qualified professionally. And then due professional care, whether there are adequate manuals, programs and working papers. Like for our organization, we have certain guidelines on how we are going to go about the audit. So I'm not going to go through this one. So basically, the Institute of Internal Auditors was established in 1977. You can go to the website here to check more information about organization. So it says here that we have certain standards and code of ethics. Okay, consists of 3 broad guidance, standards and ethics. If you have a face-to-face class, I can bring you the framework. Actually, I have it with me. It's red in color. So besides standards and ethics, we have practice and advisories as well as practice aids. So again, like external auditor, their counterparts, they also have the internal auditors members also expected to conduct their duties with integrity, objectivity, confidentiality and competency. Okay, it says that in practice, internal auditors do not generally audit periodic financial statement, but rather focus on specific financial issues as directed by management. Again, as I said just now, they focus mostly on the compliance audit rather than on financial statement audit. Okay. So this is what I have explained. The second AI that we need to understand is auditing standard 620. So basically, we are saying that in using the work of expert, we need to obtain sufficient audit evidence that such work is adequate for the purpose of the audit. So expert here means a person or firm is possessing special skill, knowledge or an experience in particular field. For example, we need to ask assistance from engineer, actuary, lawyers, medical expert, for example. Okay, an expert may be engaged by the entity or auditor or the entity or employed by the auditor. Okay, these are the paragraph that you need to look at if we want to use the work of an expert. Work of an expert can be in the form of reports, opinion, evaluation, or maybe perhaps statement. So with regard to the competence and objectivity of the expert, we can refer to paragraph 8 to 10. We can look at the professional certification, licensing, membership to a professional body, looking at the experience and reputation. And we also have to understand the scope of the expert's work in assisting us. Okay. If we plan to use the work of an expert, we need to consider the materiality of the items in the financial statement, be it in inventory, property valuation, for example, and the risk of the material misstatement as well as reliability of the client's evidence. So all these factors need to be considered before we can actually use the work of an expert. Okay, since we still have time, looking at here, planning to use the word expert, when I talk about the materiality of the item, let's say if we are looking at the inventory, look at the construction aggregate, perhaps the precious metal, mineral, timber or gemstone. So we need their assistance to value certain items which is beyond our knowledge and competency. So class, we shall discuss this in tutorial. Hopefully you have better idea that under AI series, we may use the work of other auditors, we use work of internal auditors and using the work of an expert. AI600 will be covered when we are going to discuss in group audit. because that is when you use the work of